Good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 234 of The Ball is Round. My name is Andy Coronado, and tonight on the show, we react to CF Montreal's road to Leagues Cup ending and Roses FC draw against the Halifax Tide. We'll answer all your questions, so make sure to put it in our chat. As always, as you guys can see, I'm joined by the one and only Elias Grigoriadis. What's good, my man? How you doing?
Life is good, man. Life is good. Got CF Montreal to talk about, got Roses, got all that stuff. European soccer starting again soon. We're doing great. We're doing
And
great.
as you guys can see, Elias has a new setup. Big weekend for you, man. You
Wow. Yes, I have flown the nest at last. Yeah, no, I actually today was the big move day. So you're coming to you live from a very makeshift setup, but it's mine, and I'm happy.
Elias, honestly, we talked about this a few weeks ago, and you were telling us how you were getting ready for the move, and I was like, Elias, there's absolutely nothing I hate more than the process of moving. It is brutal.
I'm so fucking tired, man.
It's so
I
stupid.
can't
It's
lift
so
my
dumb.
arms. I can't like stand on my own 2 feet. I'm so tired.
There is nothing fun
Everything
about it.
hurts.
And honestly, like the before and after
Everything hurts.
moving is horrendous for the next few months. I'm just encouraged. I'm giving you so much to look forward to right now, but
Yeah,
it's
exactly. You're doing a great job. You should be in sales, man.
it's the worst. But anyways, we're gonna get into it all. So before we get started, oh by the way, yesterday I got to see chain smokers, but not Oshaga because we got caught up in a rainstorm while we were in Putinfest in Old
Yeah,
Port.
apparently it was delayed. There was like lightning and stuff, no?
Dude, it was bad. We were walking with my wife, and all of a sudden, it just felt like a freaking flash, like a lightning flash that came, and both her and I were like, "Wow!" We thought we were gonna die. And then, yeah, we saw that Oshaga, and then we got to see like watch Chain Smoker from like probably 5 kilometers away because they were on the other island. They're so good. They're so good. I forgot they still existed, but they're so good. But let's get right into it. Before we get started, guys, just a quick reminder that if you listen to the show and like what you hear slash see, click on the subscribe button to support The Ball is Round. While you're at it, make sure to also subscribe to all of our social media platforms for daily update. Elias, let's get right into it. CF
Let's.
Montreal drew against Leon and then won the game on penalties on Tuesday night
Mm-hmm.
to start the Leagues Cup with another Prince of Wusu goal. And essentially, the Leon missed that penalty. What were your overall thoughts of the game?
Yeah, I mean, it's just to touch on it quickly. God, that was the most fun I've had. And I'm sure a lot of people have had at Stats Saputo all season. Honestly, I think. Um, it was back and forth. It was entertaining. There was good offense. The finishing was a little bit dubious, a bit more dubious than maybe the level of finishing that we've gotten used to over the last 2 or 3 games. But damn, you can't say it wasn't entertaining. You can't, and for all the we talked about it a couple of times, right? The casual fan that comes to Satsuputo, do they want to come back after a game like that? 100%. They want to come back.
Yeah, we're talking.
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Also, Robbie, yes, there will be a housewarming party, and everyone that subscribes to the Patreon will be invited. I'm kidding, but
Subscribe and get a beer. But
I didn't say that. I said you're invited. I didn't say I was getting you beer.
but it was definitely one of those games that you're actually you it feels like after the whole letter fiasco that came out and you know how MLS is going, it just feels like the players have been maybe a little bit looser playing. They've been a little
Mhm.
bit, just like we got nothing to lose, man. So let's just do our thing. And I don't know if you saw Elias in the middle of the week, you know how CF Montreal releases those videos derrière chaque victoire, behind every victory, and they give us a little bit of clips of the locker room and all that. And it was a special moment that I rewatched, I swear, like maybe 20 times because it was an interesting interaction between Marco Donadel and
Yeah.
Prince Owosu. Prince Owosu, who obviously is one of the top performers right now. I'm almost afraid to add arguably there, no, because he almost is the best performer in the team. And essentially, they had a back and forth where Prince Owosu was like, nobody's passing me the ball. And he's like, you do the run, let them figure it out. If you don't want to, he said, have some spaghetti. I think you go take off your cleats, have some spaghetti. Like he said, pretty much shut up. Like, do your job or get benched. That's it. And it doesn't, with CF Montreal being last place in the league, it almost and obviously little to no expectations at this point. It almost feels like, who are you to talk back to the coach? But Marco Donadel still commands respect. He's still and Marco Donadel might actually be there longer than Prince Owosu if everything turns out well or whatnot. So it was a very interesting interaction. And what do you know? Right after that, speech or whatever, Prince Owusu did that run. He did that run that Marco Donadel asked him to do, almost like mirror image to a talk. So, what about the product on the field? Like, how did you feel that the players they played? How did you like their style? What did you see? What did you observe?
I mean, yeah, well, first off, that interaction is like the most typical coach and striker interaction in history.
Yeah.
Every coach is like, you need to run. The ball won't come if you don't make a run.
Yeah.
And then the striker's like, but I'm not getting the ball. And I'm like, because you're not. But but like what I was really observant and what I really, what really caught my eye was the way that he interacts with his players. Right. He didn't shut him down immediately. He didn't yell at him. He said, no, make the fucking run. No, he just said, okay, yeah, you don't want to make the run. Fine. You're not going to play.
To bench.
Get you your pasta and, get some water and then you're done. Right. No, like he knows. Again, you can't make an entire conclusion from such a small sample size of interactions, but it looks like, that's why former players make such good man managers sometimes. Is they understand how to communicate with the footballer. They understand how to communicate what you need to kind of get your message across. And yeah, it seems to me that he understood it. But again, every single game, you're going to have to be kind of reminding him because that Prince Owusu wants his passes a certain way. And you see it every single game. If he doesn't get the ball where he wants it or how he wants it or when he wants it, you will know about it. Yeah. So again, the striker coach dynamic is a tale as old as time. But besides that, on the field, it was everything we want to see from this team now that the season is done. Season is quote unquote done. It was entertaining. It was fast paced. It was adventurous, and they didn't get completely played off the pitch. In fact, they were the ones that should have won that game. So yeah, you know what? Honestly, a game like that does a lot more good than it does harm. Yeah. Even if they lost on penalties.
Yeah, I mean, they did. I think at this point, and I've said it in this show, right, Elias? We both said it. For your mental health, for your mental health as a CF Montreal fan, stop focusing on results. Focus on the performance on the field, because that's at the end of the day where you want to see the improvements. Forget the W's. The W's might come. We're in a rebuild phase. It might come in 6 months. It might come in a year. We don't know. But for your mental health, enjoy the game, enjoy what is going on, and take it from there. And that's kind of what we saw the players also take that approach, right? So Montreal comes out with a win. There's a lot of excitement, a lot of hype that people loved their performance. How did you feel about CF Montreal's chances in the competition, the Leagues Cup, following that victory? You knew you had the Toluca, the Liga MX champions last year. You have to win. There's no choice.
Yeah. Realistic, because again, and I like this change in format that the Leagues Cup has made, because I found the 3-team groups to be just stupid. So I think that this is a step in the right direction. The problem is you can't have 4 teams per league progress to the next round. It's completely idiotic.
Yeah.
It leaves no room for error, no room for anything, no room for a team to drop points in the first game and then try and still fight the way back into. No, you have to be perfect every single time. At like best case scenario, if you get 8 points, you slide in as like the 3rd place team, as a 3rd or the 4th place team, right? But it's kind of dumb, because if you look at the standings now, you've got like at least a 1/3, if not half of the teams going into their final game knowing they're not going to make it.
Yeah.
No, that like mathematically they're out, let alone realistically. So it's kind of ridiculous. And if you took this exact same format and you opened it up as a round of 16 instead of straight to the quarterfinals, and you said 8 teams per league, you keep the top 18 per league, right? I love that because it gives you a kind of like, I earned this spot in the Leagues Cup, but which Montreal probably won't be playing in next year. But you extend it to 8 teams per league. It's one extra game in terms of a knockout stage format, and every single team is still in it unless they lose both their first games, and obviously they're not. But like you're in Montreal's shoes. You win, you may be able to sneak in with 5 points, maybe if things go your way. You still have something to play for. Now, half the teams are done. Half the teams are going, okay, this is essentially a friendly in the middle of the season.
Which
right?
I think,
and honestly, thank God Prince got sent off after the Toluca game because now he's got the night off.
Fernando Alvarez. That's what
Fernando Alvarez?
It was Fernando Alvarez. It was weird because I heard the Apple TV commentator say we got confirmation that it's, and we'll get right to the game in a bit, but at the end, so those of you that didn't watch the game, both Prince Owusu went at the end of the Toluca game. Prince Owusu and Fernando Alvarez after the game went rushing to the referee to just give him shit about what they what they probably considered unfair about, I believe it was the extra time. And all you see is the ref raise a red card. So like you, Elias, I was like, it must be Prince Owusu. He seems to be the one most agitated. But then the Apple commentator said, we can confirm that it's Prince Owusu that got that red card. But then in the comments on X, I saw that it was actually Fernando Alvarez that got that red card. So in any case, Elias, if Prince Owusu did get that red card, I'm all for it, man. The dude needs a break.
Honestly, even if he didn't get the red card, let Graham Rowe start, let Vincent start, let anybody start. Let the man rest. The game, there's literally nothing to play for. Let him have a break.
Yeah. And look, honestly, after they won, I really liked the hype, and it was really like, it felt like they were building towards something.
Mm-hmm.
As far as how I felt about their chances in the competition, I mean, it's still CF Montreal, right? So to me, it's just, you never know. Week by week, when you think they're going to get massacred 4-0, they manage to either do a draw or a victory. So they've managed to surprise. So I was like, they can either be the the lucky the underdogs, the Cinderella story of the competition, or not. They'll just fill the check mark that they're expected to lose every game. And so they, I had a lot of skepticism for the Toluca game. And CF Montreal quickly got back into the action facing Toluca, last year's, like I mentioned, Liga MX champions. Saturday night, where they lost 2-1 and saw their Leagues Cup run come to an end. But to start, Elias, can you just show us the lineup for the Saturday night game so that we can look at it? So at the goalie, we had Jonathan Sirois, we had Fernando Alvarez, Samuel Piet, Joel Waterman in midfield, Prince Owusu obviously the 9, Hennady Sinchuk on the right, Victor Lotori in midfield, Caden Clark as left middle, I want to say, Efrain Morales with Fernando Alvarez, and David Bugay on the right, Alexander Kuboglu as a left back. So let's talk a little bit about that lineup, because we see obviously Efrain Morales getting his first start. What were your thoughts when you saw that, when you saw his name there as the first start for a big game?
Good. You've got to finally see what this guy's made of. It's not like he's coming in and he's still in mid-season form. He's been training and playing all season. And yeah, I loved it. Honestly, I was super happy that he was in there. Again, I want to see Escobar start. I don't know why he's not starting. He played excellent again. We're gonna get to him in a little bit, but besides that, the lineup was fairly unsurprising. Managing the fullbacks minutes is super important, right? Luca Petrasso again did not start. He does not stop running physically, never stops. Same thing for David Bugay, but David Bugay is a bit more conservative. He doesn't run as much as Luca Petrasso does. So, Kuboglu, I talked about it last week or 2 weeks ago about how much I'm hot and cold on, just the him at left back. I don't love it.
Yeah.
And yeah, when they finally get some support at left back through the market, not if, when, at the fullback position, yeah, then you know what? He'll be able to step further forward and be a little bit more comfortable because it's clear he's not a fullback.
Yeah.
Maybe he was a wingback, maybe, but a fullback, absolutely not. And it showed again. It showed.
And how, the CF Montreal ended up losing 2-1 and saw their Leagues Cup, run come to an end. As you mentioned, there's going to be a friendly, I guess, on Tuesday, that if you want to call it that. Do you think CF Montreal deserved to win the game? Do you think, we don't talk a lot about refereeing here, Elias, right? We don't. It's not an excuse for us, but obviously people, they were very loud about their comments of the refereeing. Did you think CF Montreal deserved more than what they ended up? Because truth be told, Prince Owusu did have some terrible misses, some that are unlucky. It hit a post, whatever it may be. But do you think that they deserved to win on Saturday night? Did they play well enough to? And I'm not focusing on Prince Owusu in general. The whole.
Yeah, look, I mean, they played all right. They played well, but to go so far as to say that they deserve to win, no, no, that's not the case. You look at that the Paulinho goal, which is just absolutely ridiculous. It's a textbook bicycle kick. It's incredible. But you look at the first goal, right? It's a stinker from Alvarez, who finally looked like he was on the right track, and he had an okay rest of the game. Yeah. I mean, he wasn't terrible, but again, at that point, after the second goal, Toluca kind of just dropped into their low block and did whatever, right? But it's a stinker. Right, you're surrounded by 3 players. You're trying to break lines, fine, but you have to know the risks involved. It's a 3v1, and you kind of and it wasn't even close. It went right to him. It's like the guy hit the stretch and barely got a tone and won the ball. No, it went right to his foot. Yeah. That can't happen. That cannot happen. And the fact that you have Brendan Craig, who's playing well, and Efrain Morales, again, first impressions are very important. We don't know how this guy's going to turn out, but everything that he put on display was the right stuff. I think he made one mistake. It was kind of early in the game where he went up for a header, missed it, and they got him behind him. And after that, he was rock solid. Yeah. So you're going to lose your spot. That spot that was wide open, you've continuously let yourself lose that spot. And when Jalen Neal comes back, you're going to fall even further down the pecking order. So that's just the reality of the situation for him.
It's for me, Fernando Alvarez has always, since I've watched him in practice and the whole season, he always seems so vulnerable to indecisiveness and not sure if what he's doing right. And it almost, it reminds you a little bit of the goalkeeper for Roses FC, which we'll talk a little bit about later. Is one of some of those decisions where you're like, no, what are you doing? And I think that, for him has probably also affected him, knowing that he's made those decisions that have been questionable, that you see him doubt himself in moments where Elias, he's completely alone. He's completely alone. And he's like, wait. I'm not sure what to do here because there's too much freedom. But under pressure, he does well, which it's something that you would think that with time it gets better, but it's actually gotten worse over time with Fernando Alvarez. So I really like what I saw in general from the game as well. I like the fact that we finally get to see Hennady Sinchuk play for 76 minutes, 80 minutes almost.
I think it's the most minutes he's played this year.
He has. That was the most amount of minutes that he played all season. And he was good. And he's essentially demoted Dante Seeley to bench, which you talked about last week, Elias, is the version that you want to see of Dante Seeley, where he is not necessarily your go-to starter because he can actually provide that power, that quick sub, where teams are tired maybe because Hennady Sinchuk really wore them down. And then, but it was a game again of, at some point it just felt like CF Montreal just kind of threw everything in the table, put all the forwards, put everybody in attack, and let's just hope we score because at this point we're desperate. And at that point, when it becomes the whole concussion debacle, Elias, nobody's talking about it. But what the goalie? Why did he continue going?
I don't understand how he was allowed to continue playing the game. They make such a big deal out of protecting head injuries. The man is bleeding from his skull, and you're
doesn't make any sense. Zero sense. No, why isn't that talked about more?
That was a very scary moment. anytime blood is drawn, especially when it's the head, you're always like, Jesus. But the fact that they've made such a big effort to kind of address head injuries in soccer and take the proper precautions, and now they still just let him play completely.
Yeah.
It's very
there
odd.
has to be somebody's word, and I don't know, maybe I don't know the rules, maybe I don't know, it's not clear to me, but there has to be somebody on the field completely, the doctor or whatever, somebody that's not linked to the team, that needs to be able to tell the player, dude, you're out. Because the player's
Yeah,
like, no, I'm good to go, man, I feel good. It's like,
it's the adrenaline. You don't
no.
know what you're.
Exactly. And clearly he was not well. I'm sorry, he wasn't well. And there has to be somebody that says, dude, for your future, like, don't mess this up. Elias, I've mentioned it on this show before. I grew up playing football, American football. I watch football, and I've seen these head injuries, and they look like they're completely normal while they're on the field, but it messes them up. Anyways, we're not going to delve too much into the injury, but it is something that I was like just questioning. I was like, what the hell? There has to be something that happens here. But what did anybody stand out for you in particular? Besides, we talked about Efrain Morales. What was there a player that maybe like you weren't expecting much, but in the competition you were like, you know what, they gave me a reason to believe that they're the next. They're good.
Wouldn't say stood out, but this was another really solid game from Joel Waterman. He had some moments where he was just a little bit slow, not necessarily like physically slow, but just like, sometimes he waited a little bit too long for the game to come to him instead of him coming, like, going to the game. But again, like, in terms of being like in terms of sure-footedness, he's by far the best on the team. And
Okay.
he very rarely puts a foot wrong. The problem is he doesn't assert himself enough sometimes, especially when he plays in the midfield. He waits just a little bit too long, and then he kind of gets jumped. But when he gets on the ball and he gets in his rhythm for a lot of the game, especially on a field that was that terrible, we didn't really talk about it, but the field was horrible because you're playing a double header.
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with you?
Oh,
Why are you play? What possessed you to play a double header? What professional tournament has 2 games back to back like that on natural grass? It was horrifying, and the field looked like it. And yeah, the ball was bouncing all over the place. It was a mess. I'm surprised nobody blew out an ankle or a knee or anything. Thank God. But
did it
it's
happen? Was it the same situation with Lionel Messi's game yesterday? And we'll talk about that a little bit
I
later. But
I
did
am
they have a
not I'm
double
not
header on that field?
100% sure,
Okay,
but
sorry.
I
Just wanted
mean,
to ask that. Okay.
so they would never make Messi play on a field that's already been played on. How dare you assume that? The great Messi playing on pre-played field, disgusting. No, how dare you? That's besides the point. I think Joel
Yeah,
Waterman had a
sorry.
really solid game, and yeah, you know what? Just, look, his presence in the midfield is still weird to me, but he's a midfielder by trade, and he's doing the thing. He's
Yeah.
being the pivot, which is absolutely needed. I just don't know about him, Piet, and Laturi in the midfield at the same time when you need a win, because then it becomes a little bit too negative.
Yeah. Yeah, and I agree with you. And Joel Waterman is a subject that's a little bit tricky to me because I think he can do some great things. He's proven over and over again that he can do some great things. But Elias, what worries me about Joel Waterman is what he does off the ball or between plays, where he does some knuckleheaded decisions or is very like he gets himself way too hyped to the extent that it's almost like worrisome that he's gonna get another red card. It's worrisome, and sometimes he'll pull off some fouls that are also very questionable. Where it's like, what the hell are you thinking at that point? I think he gets a little bit too heated, so that worries me. What he does, how he can eliminate himself, like he did against Toronto FC. But it's really, it really is something that to me, who really I was impressed in the tournament, showed me a lot, was the most obvious is going to be Henadi Sinchuk, because
Yeah,
he is, to me, he is showing that he's adapting quickly, and he's also
he's gonna
super
be
young,
so
so it's
good. He's
normal.
gonna be so good.
He's adapting quickly to the physical league. He came in, he was kind of pushed around and bullied by the MLS players because it's a physical league and they love the young kid. Now he gets back up and he goes on, and he actually is physical. I don't know if you've seen him, but he is physical as a winger.
And remember, he's 6 foot, right? He's not a little guy.
Yeah, and he's learned to use his body. He's learned to use his, which is something that we talked about in this show. How George Campbell, more than anything, as big of a guy as he was at the beginning, he wasn't using his body properly. He learned to really use his body to, get the best players out, and that's what I'm seeing from Hernani Centric is how to use his body, how to open up, and his combination with David Bugay is super, super interesting. So that's someone. Is there anybody that disappointed you in the tournament that you thought you would have seen more from?
Disappointed? I mean, Fernando Alvarez had a good first game, so I can't really say him, even though the second game was tough. I'm gonna say Victor Loturi. I think the minutes are finally catching up with him,
Big time.
Because he's been so important, not just because of the quality, but because of the fact that he was the only natural defensive midfielder on the team for like a good chunk of time that wasn't actively injured or ill. So the work he put in, holding down that spot in that area of the field was super important. But you can tell it's finally catching up with him because the last 2-3 games, he's looked not just one step behind, but he's looked completely overwhelmed in a number of situations. So I think that with Samuel Piet coming back, with Joe Waterman being a fairly competent, I mean, like Patrick said, right? You need a real 8. Joel Waterman needs to go back to center back. Yeah, ideally he goes back to center back, but he's a competent, stand-in. But Victor Loturi still needs a lot of time to understand how to maybe deliver the level he's delivered consistently. Yeah, because it's been rough this Leagues Cup. Let's just say that.
I think the player who disappointed me the most, or maybe I was not disappointed, maybe that's a wrong word to use, but the one I was expecting to see more because I do want to see him take that next step was one of our guests, which was Alex Guboglu, who I wanted to see him settle in, Elias. I want to see him settle in like, this is my position. This is what I want to do moving forward. But he doesn't look comfortable. I don't have the stats in front of me, but how many games has he already played for CF Montreal? Some of them as winger, some of them as left back, right back. He's played a little bit everywhere. And it's just like he always seems a little bit uncomfortable. He's not the speediest. He's not the most physical. He's mentioned it several times that he's very good 1v1. But 1v1, you don't get that much as a left back, guys.
Yeah.
So another one I did mention a little bit who that I agreed with Joel Waterman, but the one that actually is surprising me in a good way, Elias, is Caden Clark. Now I've given him a lot of shit in this show. I've said that he's disappointed and that but you know what? I'm going to give credit when credit is due. And I like that Caden Clark has been opening up a lot more. Now, is anybody going to pass it to him? I mentioned it last week. I want to see somebody pass it to him because he is making those runs. But no, as you mentioned, Victor Loturi, those that are supposed to be passing or transitioning from defense to offense seem to be a little bit, facing the right side all the time. Right side. And it's Caden Clark making those left side runs, so and that's why Hernani Centro gets so many opportunities with the ball. Fair enough. But you were talking a little bit earlier about Oger Escobar. We haven't seen much from him, but the few minutes we do see, and I think he's come in as a sub most of the time. He hasn't gotten a start yet, right? And I asked him in the press conference, I was like, what are the coaches expecting from you to get what do you need to be a starter? You seem to be in decent physical shape. Like, what are you missing? And he was just like, it's I'm not angry about it. I'm just gonna continue working. I was like, not my question, but he's like, I'm just gonna, continue working and do what I gotta do, which is a very politically correct answer, which is fine. But what do you think he's missing? Like, why isn't he able to give us at least 40? Well, he has given us 45 minutes, but like a 70, 80 Sinchuk minutes, if you want.
Yeah, we saw it in the Gold Cup. We saw he's capable of playing that amount of that share of his minutes, but I really don't understand what is missing. Again, we're not there in the meetings, we're not there day in, day out, we're not there, we go to practice as often as possible, but we're not going to see him in the gym, we're not going to see him in video. So there's obviously something that Marco Donadel still feels needs to be worked on, but every time he's on the field, he makes something happen. Something happens every time he's on the field. He's creating a chance, or he's finding space, or he's scoring a goal. He does something, and every single time, he's clinical. We only get to see him for maybe a 10-minute spurt with Hennady Sinchuk when he's coming on and Hennady Sinchuk is on his way off. But those 10 minutes are almost always the most entertaining 10 minutes of the game.
Yeah.
For a reason. And, back to your earlier point, he's one of the few people in the middle of the field that actually looks towards Caden Clark. He's actually one of the few people that tries to find him. And you saw it again against Toluca, where when he was on, he played Caden Clark in a couple times. He's the only person not named Luca Petrasso that actively looks for Caden Clark. So, yeah, I do think that sooner rather than later, it's going to be inevitable that he's going to get starts, like multiple consecutive. Look, the game against Puebla is a great chance. You've got nothing to play for. If you don't like what you see, you take him off after 45. If it's a physicality issue, you take him off after 45. There's 100 different ways that you can, still give him that opportunity and not leverage yourself. And so I think he's more than earned it. He more than deserves it. And give the crowd something to cheer for, something to look forward to.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's important that we start seeing a lot of the new signings. We haven't been, we've seen very little from Jalen Neal as well, because the signings, when I say that, is the new signings from the new sporting direction, right? The ones that are using more data, the ones that are using different, the Bologna scouting or whatnot. It's important. We talked about Efrain and all that. These are players, including Oger Escobar, that is so young, but as you mentioned, he brings that punch when he comes in. Is like, whoa, a lot of teams don't know what to expect of him yet. A lot of teams are learning because CF Montreal hasn't given that much tape to really study him as a player and prep for him, So it's kind of a weird situation, because he clearly brings a lot of hype to the field, a lot of hype to the team when he's in, and he's obviously very excited to be there. But you mentioned Puebla. So CF Montreal next hosts Puebla in Stade Saputo on Tuesday night with what can be considered a meaningless game. It's a friendly, as you mentioned, right? The win or loss don't count. What will you be looking forward to the most for this game?
Two things really, more than anything. I mean, I'm looking for a couple of stuff, but to keep it short, I'm looking for two. One is for Efrain Morales to follow up that performance.
Yeah.
And give another one at that level or near that level, 100%. The second one is I'm looking for, and I've been asking this for weeks now, is Sinchuk and Escobar minutes together, and more than just 10 or 15. I'm talking about, I want at least 30, depending on who starts and who plays and whatnot. I want an extended amount of time where they're both in the field together, because this is your future right now of your club. These two are the future of the attack at your club. You need to start putting them together in competitive situations. You need to start putting them together on the field against top-level opposition, against grown-ass men who will take a swipe at them every 30 seconds. And you also have to show your fans that, these are your paying fans that are coming to watch this game. You got to give them something to go, I will come back to watch these guys play together again.
Yeah.
Those are the two things I need to have happen.
Yeah.
On what are they playing? They're playing on Tuesday. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I do want to see. I want to see Marco Donadel have fun, experiment. Like try out different. Like you said, give Oger Escobar the start, or try out Sunusi Ibrahim with them. See what happens, man. What's the worst? Give Mahalo Poku what might be his last minutes with CF Montreal. Try something, anything. Like the young guys. Give Efrain Morales an opportunity to follow up and give us more tape and more proof of what he can do. You know what I'm looking for, Elias? Maybe this might come weird, but I'm looking for a lot of them to get rest. Prince Owusu to get rest.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe for once just watch the game and see it from a distance. And Luca Petrasso, like really give the young kids an opportunity to play. You talked a little bit earlier about Owen Graham Roach. Give him the chance to give us a good 70 minutes, of a good tape, so they can try out new things and try out. Maybe Marco Donadel can really put it all on the table and say that if this is the future of the team, if this is what the future looks like, then I'm going to play them how I would like to play in the future. right? So that's exactly what I want to see on Tuesday. I wanted to see them experiment a bit, right? Now I haven't looked into Puebla. I don't know how good they are or how they do in Liga MX play, but it's going to be very interesting to see what happens Tuesday night. And yeah, so I think we're good with the topics of the CF Montreal Leagues Cup, because honestly it's weird, Elias. You mentioned it earlier, the way the competition's set up, it's strange. It's almost feels like friendlies, but at the same time they can compete for something. But what really made this Leagues Cup last year a big deal was Messi Mania. We talked about it a little bit earlier, right? And he had just signed. Was it last year? Yeah, it was last year, right? He had just recently signed, and he
2 years ago.
I just feel like it was last year.
Last year was his first full season, but he made his debut 2 years ago in the Leagues Cup.
Okay, well, in any case, they won the Leagues Cup the first time around. It was really Messi in Leagues Cup. He got his first trophy and all that. He got injured last night, and it didn't look good. I don't know if you saw a replay of it or you saw the actual game.
No.
But it didn't look good. It was almost to say non-contact, even though there was contact, but he was kind of pushed around. And it really was when he landed on the grass that he kind of just went down, and he was limping heavily. We're not a Miami podcast here, but the truth of the matter is, does this injury, do you think, in your opinion, an injury like a Leagues Cup with no Messi Mania is even worth a Leagues Cup at this point? Like, do you think this really, because they looked, all the Inter Miami staff actually looked super stressed when he went down. They were like, "What do we do?" Because, but at the same time, you got to imagine that the MLS offices, they probably are a little bit concerned too. They're a little bit concerned that they're
DEFCON 1, man.
Their golden egg or whatever, their prized, their prized player, he's gone. Like how, and we don't know the gravity. No, I don't think they've announced it yet. We hope it's not too bad. But do you think without Messi Mania, Leagues Cup loses a little bit of its purpose in the long run, or maybe in the short run?
I mean, I don't like Leagues Cup to begin with.
Me neither. Hate it.
So this, for me personally, this changes absolutely nothing.
MLS,
but
Elias.
there's gonna be a lot of people who aren't tuning in.
Yeah.
Right. But the thing is, if you were gonna tune in for, NYCFC against Club America, or I don't know if those two, I'm just picking two teams.
Yeah.
You weren't watching for Messi. Messi Mania is not what's making you watch, right? Yeah. Will the Inter Miami viewership drop like a rock? Absolutely. But will the rest of the games? No, it won't change a thing, because again, you're not gonna advertise Messi on a game for those two clubs or for any of the other 35 clubs in competition who are not playing Inter Miami. So yeah, it's a bummer whenever a player gets injured, especially somebody who is the MVP frontrunner and who was last year's MVP and who's probably gonna win it again this year, and who's it's Messi, right? But in terms of like it hurting the overall viewership, no, it's going to hurt Inter Miami's viewership. I'd love to know the percentage of people watching the game that turned their TV off when Messi came off injured, because it's probably very high.
Massive drop. Yeah.
But, overall, this doesn't change anything. It's still Leagues Cup, and Leagues Cup is still, it's there.
Yeah. You mentioned something interesting, because you say like, oh, they're not going to promote Messi in other games. Guys, when you watch on Apple TV any game, a CF Montreal versus NYCFC, whatever, I'm talking MLS play right now, the first thing that comes on as soon as it goes live is Messi giving a header. Obviously they're not advertising Messi.
What I mean is, like, they're not going to be using Messi to promote this game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but isn't that a loss?
Because Messi, you can't use Messi to promote NYCFC against Club America. They're going to show, someone who's never seen soccer before is going to open the TV, go, why isn't Messi here? Close the TV.
Yeah.
Anyone else who knows that Messi doesn't play for either team knows that there is watching not because of Messi, it's because they want to watch NYCFC versus Club America. So, like, honestly, in the grand scheme of things, yeah, people won't watch Inter Miami as much, but the viewer rates for every other team will stay basically the same.
It's just that it also blows the chances for Inter Miami. Again, we don't know the length of the injury or how bad it is. But assuming he's out for 2-3 weeks, this essentially is a huge impact on Inter Miami's chances of getting past, like
Absolutely.
the playoff. So again, going with that theme of like it blows their chances to go further. Say they get eliminated in the first round of the playoffs or whatever. I don't know how this competition works. But say they get eliminated for whatever reason because he's not playing, and obviously the other players are not as good as him. There's not much hype after Inter Miami is out of the game. How do you continue making Leagues Cup what this league MLS wants to make out of it? They want it to be the next big thing. They want it to be taken seriously, this competition. But with Inter Miami out of it, how do you do that? Like how
you keep delivering good, high quality football. That's the only way you can keep growing your sport. Messi or no Messi, Human Son or Gareth Bale or Thomas Muller, doesn't matter. The quality of your product is ultimately what will draw people in, right? You can only get by on the Messi Mania gimmick for so long before people go, yeah, he's been here for 2 years. We know he's there. Doesn't change whether or not I want to watch the games. What will change whether or not I want to watch the games is how good the other players and the other teams are. So if I know that I could turn on MLS and I'll get entertaining competitive league, which is the case because remember, first place can play last place, and which literally happened 2 weeks ago, and it was an excellent game. So people could turn on the TV knowing that's going to happen. That's going to do a lot more in the long run than whatever good short-term boost in viewership Messi is going to give.
I think that a lot of people that are out of the US and out of Canada and don't really care much for MLS, but they really, really care about Messi, which is a huge viewership in Spain and Argentina and South America and all that. The moment they learn that he's not participating in the game, they'll be like, oh, that's his team. That's true, but he's not there. I'm out. Oh, De Paul is there now. Okay. So it's one of those things that I think it's going to be heavy for the league, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. Again, there's not an Inter Miami podcast, but I did want to go ahead and talk about the Leagues Cup. But you mentioned a few names there. You mentioned a song.
Sentences that never mentioned outside of maybe the DePaul household. Oh, DePaul is on. I'll watch. He's gonna fucking watch soccer because Rodrigo DePaul is playing. He's excellent, but like he's not gonna draw players in.
Honestly, whenever I was watching any friendly windows where Peru was playing against Argentina, there was that one player that would always infuriate me the way he played.
Oh yeah, there's very few better antagonists and people that get into your skin, but no one's gonna be watching a soccer game because Rodrigo DePaul is playing.
No, you're right.
Maybe his first game. Maybe watch his first game, but I'm not in 3 months. I was gonna be like, Rodrigo DePaul starting. Let me load up Apple TV right now. No,
wait, he changed teams. What? He's not in Spain anymore. There's probably going to be some Spain fans that are going to be like, I can't wait to see DePaul play again.
There's not many Atletico Madrid fans going, I'm going to watch my boy. Like, no.
You'd be surprised.
Staying up until 3 a.m. to watch Rodrigo DePaul, bro.
Let's do it. So speaking, because you mentioned DePaul, we mentioned Thomas Muller, who I don't care what people say, Elias. I'm still teary-eyed about it because I wanted him to come to Montreal. Yes, is it the perfect fit that Montreal needs? No, he's not. That's not the position Montreal needs.
I mean, on the field, yeah, he'd be incredible as a 10.
He would be so great. He could
exactly what Montreal needs.
He can play any position in the attacking post. And I'm a personal fan. You know this. I'm a Bayern Munich fan. I've seen him play and during his great days. My God, watching him play is outstanding. And when Vancouver comes to Montreal, which I really hope they do for whatever reason, I hope I get to see Thomas Muller play because I think he's just different.
Next year is Vancouver's turn to come here, so you never know.
I can't wait, man. I think he just plays soccer in a different way. He sees the sport so differently, and it's just amazing to watch. But we talked about those big names going to other teams, right? But it's been 11 days since the MLS transfer window has opened, and there's been no news from CF Montreal then, besides the ones that we mentioned last week. Are you getting anxious, man? Are you starting to get anxious? Do you think the wait is good news? Because I know I'm starting to feel a certain kind of way since I was promised to rebuild.
I'm not worried in a sporting capacity. The window does what the window does. You take your time to work out deals, or you solve it right away. That's whatever. I'm more worried in a PR capacity. Probably saying road trip to Vancouver.
Let's do it.
If they're playing on the road, you will see probably a pretty heavy presence from Montrealers there because why the hell not? Yeah. But back to the window. back to the Mercato. From a PR perspective, you dominate the headlines right now. Yeah, the Owls are playing, and the Roses are there. But besides that, you have, open reign to kind of dominate the sports news cycle. The Habs are starting their preseason very slowly. The Victoires are starting to get back into the swing of things. Hockey's not really there yet. This is your chance to establish yourself for the next couple of weeks. And they did that with the letter. And now it's been quiet.
So quiet.
Yeah, the Leagues Cup is one thing, but the Leagues Cup is also a great chance for you to show off your new signings. And they did that with Efrain Morales. That was a great job. But now you do some more. But that's not the case. So I'm not worried sporting, like I said, but it does feel like they've kind of missed the boat with this rebuild letter and this promise to the fans. So if that was your attempt to also draw a casual, like two birds, one stone, let the hardcore fans know that yes, we are rebuilding, but also let the casual fans and the casual Montreal sports fans go like, we're here, we exist, and we're gonna be better. You've kind of now your window is it's if it hasn't closed, there's like a millimeter left.
Yeah.
Right? So you've been quiet. You're doing your own thing. I respect that. But I'm sure that there's other parts of the club that are worried about ticket sales and user interaction and fan interaction, stuff like that. They're going, please give me a signing to talk about because I don't have anything else. That's just the reality of the situation.
Well, we want to talk about it, right, Elias? We want to talk about this show.
Yeah.
We said every signing, we are going to dissect it to the core because we want to see where this team is going. What's the rebuild going? And right now, Elias, we're in a waiting game. We're in a waiting game. Teams are signing big names. Yes, are they older in age? 100% they are. They're not young anymore. But at the end of the day, they're still making signings that could potentially impact their team. And right now, CF Montreal simply isn't doing that. Yes, have they signed two? We still haven't seen the goalie play. We don't know what's going to happen with that.
Against Puebla. I love to see that.
Let's go, man. Give me something. But you know what? Like, we saw a little bit of Efrain Alvarez and Morales. Alvarez, jeez, I mixed two players. So Efrain Morales, we saw a little bit of Efrain, and we're excited. We see more Sinchuk. We're excited because these are signings, new signings that we get to see their potential. So this is the important part. But there hasn't been any big names. I'm getting a mix of anxiousness with a mix of excitement because to me it's like, sometimes the good news can wait. There's you wait and the good things come. But I'm up maybe till 1 a.m. doing my things and I'm refreshing my X page because I know that, Fabrizio Romano is probably awake 24/7 with signings and scoops and all that, and Tom Bogert too. So I'm just hoping for that. But there's a bunch of here we go. There's a bunch of news flash from like everywhere except Montreal. So it's getting a little bit frustrating, but like you said, they better make a big splash now because slowly but surely, the casual fans that were just taking a break from the Montreal Canadiens and other teams will say like, well, this was fun. We got to see some good games, and now we're back. We're back in the arena. We're back in this, and we're back in that because it picks up really fast. So let's hope. Tomorrow's Monday. I was expecting Friday, but let's hope Monday something happens and maybe we'll get to see them.
Praying to God. But before we move on, I do have to mention something. Tate, who is our resident American CF Montreal fan, from Vermont. Vermont Green FC won the USL 2 national championship. 3 players from Quebec, including one player who is a loanee from CF Montreal, if I'm not mistaken. Congratulations. But Robbie then asked if he had seen the tifo, and I don't know if you've seen this tifo, Andy, but it has gone viral because they've dropped this phenomenal tifo, which is Bernie Sanders. Again, it's Vermont Green, right? And Bernie Sanders, senator from the state of Vermont, and the sign says "Welcome to the Bernie Bow."
Love it.
And again, my feelings about Real Madrid have been made very clear. That is fantastic. Fuck Real Madrid. But that is fantastic. That is a great tifo. So everyone who was involved in bringing that tifo to life, chapeau. That is incredible. That's really a great play on words. It's a great piece of niche soccer culture that's a tifo done right. And honestly, that made me laugh. And that kind of
And
God, I love the USL.
it's awesome. And just before we move on, last thing, something that people can't forget. I try to keep it up to date in my social media. I try to keep people informed. But there's an important part of this transfer window that we also talk about, Elias, is the loanees from CF Montreal that are out. You mentioned a little bit earlier about the USL. There's Mike Wadedokun. There's in the MLS Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy. There's Matias Kokaro, and who else am I missing? Alessandro Biello to the Halifax Wanderers. These are important profiles to keep a track of. Matias Kokaro, I tweeted out yesterday because I was watching Atlas FC play. He scores a goal, and then he gets sent off on the red card. And his first start for Atlas FC. Elias, Matias Kokaro has an purchase option at the end of their loan, at the end of the season. Elias, I don't think it's happening.
Really?
I think he's coming back to Montreal. And Montreal's going to be like, what do we do with this guy? Because
what do we do is your contract's going to run out, and then
because he's expensive, it's a bad contract, which you're trying to get rid of. Is this one of the buyouts they do? Jaquil Marshall-Ruddy doesn't seem like he wants to come to Montreal. Maybe I'm completely reading the situation wrong, but he looks like he's good in Charlotte. They don't have a purchase option, but he's going to come back. This is something to keep track of in the transfer window as well. What do they do with these profiles? I'm also wondering, Elias, if they're going to put Giacomo Vrioni in the injury list, in the long-term injury list, where they shut him down for the season. Do you think they will do that, or
at this point, like it's such a depressing situation with him. I genuinely don't know what's going on anymore with this. It seems like just one bad thing after another, and he can't seem to catch a break. And you know what? He does good things, but the fact that he hasn't been able to have 3 starts in a row is brutal. It's brutal. So I mean, it's so tough to gauge his value and his importance to the team when he's not there for a sustained amount of time. And if we give Jean-Anthony Vilsain shit for not being able to be available enough for the coach to play you and plan tactically around you, we have to do the same thing with Giacomo Vrioni. And I'm not blaming the players here individually, because I'm not saying it's their fault they're getting injured. But if we have this problem with Jean-Anthony Vilsain and Laszlo Laplanen and other people who just can't seem to stay fit, we have to have the same problem with Giacomo Vrioni, regardless of his status and what the club is paying him. Regardless of all of that stuff, he still has to be held to a standard. And again, not his fault, but these are muscular injuries and these are relapses. Fabian Herbert was a relapse. Jalen Neal, I don't know if it was a relapse, but it was like a cousin of the injury that he had previously, right? This can't keep happening.
Yeah.
You've at this point you've completely rebuilt your physical preparation and your physios and your athletic therapy team and your medical team. You've rebuilt it essentially, and you're still getting the same problems where it's important players getting injured for extended amount of times, coming back and then relapsing.
Yeah.
This is unacceptable. And if you're going to rebuild your club, you've got to rebuild that aspect of it too, because I don't care how good your players are. If they don't stay healthy and they're not on the field, then you're going to suffer.
Yeah. Because besides Fabian Herbert, also because when I spoke to the New England when we were doing Op Watch, and I was speaking to our new friends that covered the New England Revolution, they were telling me that this was a common thing, Elias, with Giacomo Vrioni, where he had 2-3 games where it seemed like he was getting started, which is something we saw in Montreal. It seemed like he was getting hit together, and then all of a sudden something happened, injury, red card, whatever it may be, that he could not go on. He couldn't he couldn't go, on a streak. He couldn't really show more. It always seemed to stop because of something, and mostly because of injury. And Jalen Neal, he's had a history of injuries as well. So it kind of puts everything into question. It's like, what kind of research, how much are they investing in these players that have injury history, and what makes them think that coming to Montreal, they'll be able to do it better when history doesn't prove that? So you said they rebuild their physical. I mean, the off season when we were at Marie Victorin, there was no physical trainer at that point. I don't believe so. There wasn't any
They hadn't
performance.
hired one. No.
I think they were sort of using someone from the academy, but at the end of the point being is, um, the point was that is that something has to change because you pay so much for these players. The fans want to see them perform. We want to be able to cover it and give a proper opinion on these players, but we can't if they continue being injured. Injuries happen, and you can't blame the players, Elias. You said it yourself. But who do we blame? Who do we point to? Is it the field, the turf? Is it Marie Victorin? Is it the new personal trainer? Is it the traveling? Because every team travels, right? So it's at some point, we're in a rebuild. That rebuild has to start somewhere, and that has to do also with the health of the players. We're gonna move on, but before we move on, guys, quick reminder to click on the subscribe button or whichever platform you're listening to us from. If you like what you hear, make sure to follow us on social media as well for daily updates on everything CF Montreal, Roses FC, and Canada Soccer. While you're at it, make sure to also follow Elias and I in every platform, Blue Sky, X, everywhere. One follower subscription to our Patreon helps out the show a lot. And according to Elias, you even get a beer. So,
Whoa. Hey,
just send your email on the chat and Elias will.
Hey, man. Hand, pump the brakes.
All right, so
in this economy, man, ain't no way, bro.
I just moved out, man.
Fuck out of here. I got bills to pay now.
Sounding like a grown man. All right, so we're gonna move on to our next topic: Roses FC draw versus the Halifax Tide FC 1-1 in a tie that to me felt like a loss. Honestly, it wasn't pretty. But let's go ahead and start with the starting lineup of the Roses FC from last night. We had a goalie, Karpenko. In defense, we had Capadonna and Hill with Whitaker on the right side, Schenk on the left side. Monyard gets her second start with Ali Hess, Bibo back in the starting lineup, Sauvé on the left, Abdou, and Boychuk on the top, which Boychuk, I think she plays more on the right-hand side. What were your thoughts when you saw a little bit of new, a little bit of old in this lineup?
Look, we talked about just how impressive, I think, not just, like, for a squad rotation, but just how completely impressive Claire Monyard was in her performance against Calgary. And again, I think we debated it. I thought Paquin was going to come back into the fold. You thought that Monyard earned another start.
Yeah.
Both options were fairly good. I think that's one of those good problems to have. She earned another start. 100% she deserves it. Right? That performance was excellent last week. And I'm happy to see Hess and Bilbo back in the midfield together where they belong. They are this, like, I do think they are probably the best midfield tandem in the league. And besides that, I'm not too surprised. I mean, this is a good lineup. This is probably going to be the lineup going into the end of the season. Maybe depending some rotation at left back. But besides that, if Claire Monyard keeps up this level of form, this could be the lineup until otherwise.
Yeah, I do like the fact that the coaching staff has given players the merited starts after good performances, because that builds competition. That builds, like, hey, if I don't play well this week, if I don't perform, if I'm inconsistent, then I got another person in the place of my, it's a message. We're going to get to it because there is another player that I think deserves maybe a change. And we'll get to it, right? So let's talk about the defense and goalkeeping. I did like you mentioned, I do like that, and we're not getting to midfield yet, but I do like to see that they mixed it up. Hess it was back there, even though I did not like her last performance of last week. But let's talk about the defense and goalkeeping, including the subs.
Let's.
So, what did you think? What were your thoughts on the back line, on the back line?
I feel bad because the back line put together such a competent game, right? They really they reduced any kind of danger. Immediately was stamped out. Capadonna and Hill are Lucy Capadonna and Stephanie Hill are both kind of like two peas in the same pod. They're just tall, dominant, strong, and super confident on the ball. I think exactly what you want from a team that plays this quickly and this assertively. Everything you want. Whitaker and Shank are very complimentary. I think that Whitaker, we've seen her enough times this year to know that she loves to get forward. And even if she's not getting it forward as much as she was earlier in the season, she still is probably the more offensive of the two. And you have Shank who does kind of tuck in sometimes as a third center back, or just it is maybe just a bit more solid, the David Blue guy to the Luca Petrasso, if you will.
Yeah.
But I think as the back line, again, it was a really good game. And I've defended Anna Karpenko so many times this year. And the second we got in, like before the show, Andy was like,
"Say it, Elias."
Yeah, this one is inexcusable. The mistake like that again is inexcusable. And the first time it happened, what was it, 2-3 weeks ago, where it's like, you know what, shit happens. It's unlucky,
Players
and you
make
just gotta
mistakes.
keep. Yeah, but again, it's starting to become a pattern, and it's not a good look. It's not a good look. And if she, I think Robert Rosatoy has to at least consider the options around him. If he says I'm sticking with Anna Karpenko as my number one keeper, that's fine. If that's the goalkeeper you are running with and you trust, I get it. But Gabrielle Lambert early in the season had, some good performances, and I think that she's earned, right. She was in there for the 0-0 tie against the Halifax Tides. The first time they played, she was there for the 3-1 win against the Vancouver Tide. She was there again, one other game that I don't remember right now, but she's earned at least the right to be reconsidered, because Anna Karpenko cost her team 3 points. It's the nicest way I can say it. As much as I find her game entertaining and I like the way she plays, and I love me a keeper that has a little bit of an edge, that likes to take risks, that's fine. But when it's actively costing your team points and it's actively a detriment, the manager now has to do his job and step in and say, okay, I need to take a step back here and reconsider what my options are.
Yeah, and I agree with you. Look, the back line, I think that the way Coach Robert likes to play is he likes to, his team to play up high, and he needs us in that specific way of playing. Yes, the goalie does also play really high up the field, but that, as we've spoken in this show, makes it that the back line is a lot more vulnerable. Is a lot more vulnerable to, like, um, breakaways or whatnot. Transition play that makes it hard for a goalie that has to set up themselves quickly as they're running back on goal. The issue I have with Karpenko, and I've said it on this show because I've watched her play several times, and I said she's a wild card. Sometimes she seems to be well settled in, while other times she's not very sure what to do, and she has done some silly decisions that have made it, sometimes questionable as to what she was. And what she did yesterday that allowed that goal by Halifax, oh boy, I was like, that's the kind of stuff that makes it to the highlight reel that you don't want to be a part of, where you really made a terrible decision. You should have trusted your defense. You should have let your defense kind of try to give yourself a chance to stop that. And I just think that this is the part where we talked a little bit earlier, 5 minutes ago, I think we spoke about accountability and who plays good and who plays bad. And if you play bad, you're benched. It's as simple as that. You gave a few sequences. We're already midway to the season, and it hasn't improved. Yeah, like, you need maybe to take it back a step and maybe go back to basics and let somebody else. Maybe they'll be good, or maybe they'll be even worse. But at the end of the day, you still earned a point, which is fantastic. But it's still very, very questionable. Now, I like, as you mentioned, Capadonna and Hill. They played a fantastic game. I think they play up to what they can, but it does expose them in the back, and that's when they need to have a trustworthy goalie that can be there to make those stops whenever they're on the fast break. So, as far as the Whitaker and Schenk on the right side, I do like what I see from them. I find that Shank struggles a little bit more offensively when moving the ball forward. I think she's a much more defensive profile of a player. But they were attacking heavily on her side. And by the way, it was awesome. I told you a few weeks back, I actually went to Halifax and I got to see the Wanderers ground, and it was super
the
nice.
Wanderers ground.
Though, because it was packed. It was actually packed. When I went, it was a day that it was empty. And the Museum of Natural History, I think it's called that, is right next to it, which was really cool because you do get to see it. It's honestly a really nice spot. Anyways, off topic. We're talking about the game, but it was super nice to see the field and how packed it got. But yeah, on defense, what I'm wondering is, because Jodie Smith did come in as a sub, Elias. Why? I'm just wondering, because I did like her play. I did like the speed that she brought to the game, and I thought she was pretty decent on defense. But it looks like Schenk has taken her spot, which I'm surprised by, because I felt like Jodie Smith did decent. Yes, did she have some lapses in decision? I don't know if the goal was also on her side. I think Schenk at that point, they had taken her out when Jodie Smith came in. I don't know. I don't know if you remember that, but yeah, at that point they had taken out Schenk. I'm looking at it now. They had taken, and it was on Jodie Smith's side that the ball went. Not completely her fault. It was a mix of like a domino effect of things just going badly in the back line. But I'm surprised that she's not longer the starter, because she was the starter to start the season.
Yeah, I mean, she's had I think this is like her first game. It's her first game in a while, if I'm not mistaken, where she's been featured. I think she was injured. And if you're coming back from injury, I guess we talked about it, right? If especially when it comes to the back line, if you miss any kind of time, and you've got a replacement, someone like Schenk comes in and does very well, frankly, and is just a very reliable player. Sometimes it may take you a while to unseat her or to get your spot back. And so Jodie Smith, I still think is probably the better of the two options. Just overall, I think she brings a lot more going forward. I think in a team that's still trying to find more creative ways to generate danger and generate offense in the final third, having two fullbacks that are going forward, having a fullback on each side that's good going forward is super important. But again, you can't fault the coach for sticking with a defender that's in good form and that's giving reliable results.
Yeah, that's true, I guess. And now let's go ahead and move on to the midfield, where we have Bibo and Hess, which I said I thought Hess didn't have a good game last week, in my opinion. I thought she bounced back pretty well this game. I think she did a decent job, but I was surprised with Bibo, because we given her flowers in this game, in this podcast, where we like her game, and she has, justifiably enough, she has done some really good passes. But I found she struggled a lot against Halifax. She struggled a lot. Halifax was also, I will say this, Halifax is the first team I think I see that plays Roses so physical, which I think Tanya Boychuk thrives under that kind of play. But the other players are more, I think they play more of a, they don't play as physical. They like to pass the ball. They like to kind of build the play and all that. And it just felt like Halifax really was there to like, let's go. We're going to do this 1v1. I saw a few back and forths with their talking amongst the Halifax Bears and Rose FC. But yeah, I felt like we both struggled a bit. I don't think it was her best game. I know I will, again, she does very impressive passes when it comes to like the attack or from a deep line playmaker. But when it came to like changing the field side to side, I just saw her struggled a lot, and I was surprised. I was like, "Is that Bibo or Hez that I'm looking at right now?" And it really was Bibo, and I was surprised. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you could still tell that she's coming back from missing time with injury. She doesn't really. I don't think she's back up to rhythm 100%. But you're also right. I feel like more than any other team, Halifax has figured out how to play Montreal. After they beat Calgary last week, this is now the only team that Montreal hasn't beat this season. And for a good reason, because Halifax are, for all the issues that they have, I mean, they are last place. They do have, they do concede a lot of goals. But when Montreal they are organized defensively in a way that really matches up well with what Montreal tries to do in the final third. And yeah, the one goal was in transition, right? Latifa Abdou gets into space. She gets on the end of a great ball. She finds the back of the net. That's kind of straightforward. But when it comes to building possession and then generating offense against a low block, Halifax does a great job against what Montreal tries to bring. And I don't know, Charlotte Bilbao, maybe she still needs, some minutes to kind of get her legs back underneath her. But yeah, it wasn't her best game. I'm not super concerned about a player like her. She'll bounce back, and that's the furthest thing that I'm worried about. But yeah, it definitely was not her best game. And yeah, I do think that the physicality of Halifax threw her off, because it's very easy when you're coming back from injury, you're trying to establish a rhythm, and you're getting knocked every single time you touch the ball. You can't get into the game properly.
Yeah, and again, it's not her best game, but obviously wasn't a liability. Actually, to me, she kind of became a liability. It was becoming a liability, and I was wondering if they were going to take her off, but she actually played the full 90 minutes. But we'll see next game. Hopefully, it's like I said, Hess was able to bounce back, and I hope Bilbao can bounce back as well, because those midfields are incredibly important in this, in especially the way that the Roses FC likes to play. They're very conductive of what goes on in the attack. Let's talk about the attack, where we had Boychuk, and you mentioned about the goal that happened, which very early on in the game. I felt like Roses FC this game, we saw two different games, right? We saw the game last week where they played very high press, constantly pressure Calgary, high press in your face. While in Halifax, they were less high press. They were, more like low block, as you mentioned, and, you see a different Claire Moniard, because I felt that in high press, Claire Moniard was fantastic. And she did it a few times against Halifax. But then she, again, different approach this game around, and I kind of saw her struggle a bit as opposed to what we saw in the first game. What do you think of their attack? And then we had Megan Sauvé as well, on the left hand side, and some of the subs that came in were Noémie Paquin and Laurie Thibault that came as well. What were your thoughts on the attack?
Look, I do like what Roberto Toyo is trying to do, where he's not like, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to throw players forward and just try and, effectively run other teams over every single game, because you become very skilled at playing around that, or playing through that, or just preparing for it in general. So I still think that their press was efficient, because I just don't think Halifax is as good a team at building up from the back as Calgary is, or as any team is. I think probably they are probably the weakest in possession, and that's probably one of the main reasons that they're in last place. You've only scored 10 goals this season or something like that. You're going to struggle with the ball. So I don't mind that it was a different kind of press. What I'm more concerned with is this team has a habit now of, once they go up, they kind of go into game management mode.
Yes.
And they don't look to kill games. They don't look to put the nail in the coffin and say, okay, yeah, we'll win. We're winning 1-0. We should be comfortable at 2 or 3. So let's go and find 2 and 3. Instead, they're like, we're up 1-0. Let's first and foremost make sure that we don't concede. And then if we find the option, no, you have to kill games off. And that's what's going to make you a championship team. That's what's going to make you a better team overall. But when it comes to do or die games, when it comes to elimination games and playoff games, if you don't have that element where you smell blood in the water and you kill the game instantly, right? Like we saw against Calgary, where they found an early goal, they smelled blood in the water, and they kept turning the knife. That was the first time in weeks that I've seen them actively do that. Right. So I feel like they took another step back in that respect this weekend. But again, there's so much quality in this team. And I think now it's just, this has to kind of get coached into their head that being up 1-0, as has been shown a couple times this year, is clearly not enough. And if you keep dropping points, then you're going to put yourself in a really uncomfortable position come playoff time.
Yeah. And Samuel Sevi tells us, hey, guys. Hello, Sam.
What up, Sam?
What up, Sam? But, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, it really does feel that way, that they scored 1 goal and they're like, I think we're good with it. I think we just kind of managed the game. And it's like, at some point you have to say, No, we're gonna kick some butt and take names while we're doing it, and really continue just scoring, because the same thing is gonna happen that happened last night, Elias. It's the other team's gonna catch on, and other
You
teams are gonna
eat your
catch
way
on.
into an equalizer, and now you're stuck with a point.
Exactly, and it's too little, too late. You already made all your subs. Everybody's already, convinced that that it's over. So, teams are going to catch on. Teams have caught on before with Rose FC. It does seem like they keep trying. But do you think they're predictable now? Do you think teams are going to start like catching on really quick? Because I want to touch on this now, because they went back to first place last night. First place in the standing, which is great. It's a reason to be happy about. And they also seem to be maybe having a little bit of swag about them now, because they're starting to even celebrate, like being creative with their celebrations after goals and everything. Mm-hmm. But what I want to know, Elias, is do you think that they're lucky to be here because other teams maybe were a little bit slower to catch, like to get, find their identity, find their style of play? Or do you think they deserve it? Like they are playing like a first place team right now.
They 100% see. Here's the thing. I think they 100% deserve it, but there's a lot of moments where I don't see them play like a first place team. Mm-hmm. And also, as of the time we're recording, Toronto just beat Calgary, so they have a game in hand over Montreal, but they are now back in first place. So the title of this is a little bit misleading, but I mean, they at the time that Roses drew, they did in fact retake.
Come on, Toronto.
But here's the thing. I do think that from a mentality perspective, it ties back into what we've been talking about, where they have to be able to kill games off and see them out and ensure you get those 3 points. That's what winning teams, that's what championship teams do. Whether or not they deserve it, they absolutely deserve it. And I'm not going to knock them for starting the season on such a strong foot. That's just a testament to how well prepared they were to come into the season. And so if other teams were not as prepared, I mean, I don't think that's a knock against the Rose. I think that's a feather in their cap. Mm-hmm. So I'm happy that they're playing the way they are. And again, even now that we are 2/3 of the way through the season and every team is up and running, you're in mid-season form, they're still outplaying good teams. And they're still, you go into Toronto and you get 3 points. You don't do that if you don't deserve it. You don't do that off a fluke. They went in there and they completely controlled large parts of the game. So 100% they deserve it to be, well, I mean, they're not first place now, but to be 3 points behind first place with a game in hand. And I'd still back them to finish the season on top. They're playing Toronto again, so there's still a huge 6-point game coming up. Montreal clearly has, similar to the way Halifax has Montreal's number, Montreal seems to have Toronto's number, and they've got 2 very hard-earned wins in Toronto. So I think that, having that kind of quality, the mentality will come with the winning. And that's something that the coaching staff has to kind of reinforce into the group. But the innate quality of this team and the way that they're kind of all on the same page so quickly, 100% they deserve to be at the top of the table.
Yeah, I think that a lot of what they did comes from like day one, where they, as you mentioned, prepared so well. Not saying that other teams didn't, but clearly they hired the right support system and the coaches and the physical trainers, people that know how a new organization runs. Because we're not talking about an organization in general. We're talking about a new organization, a new league. I've mentioned it in the past with Yannick Girard, with other coaches there. Even Robert was part of the Montreal Impact Academy at some point. And it's just guys that know the community, know the city, and know the players, right? The something that surprised me, Elias, was when we went to a post-game conference in Calgary, was Stephanie Hill. Actually, when she was answered, she was like, "We're very happy, the fans, because we understand that it's la semaine de construction." She said it in French, and I was like, shows that that's a player that's connected, understands the city, understands.
Well, I mean, she's a Montrealer. She's
exactly, but it's
shout
important.
Out West Island.
That's what's up. But it's what I'm going at is it's important, right? Those kind of little things where the player, you don't have to teach them the city they know. You just have to teach them how the club is run, right? What they want to do, what their vision is, and everybody
Yep.
really buys into it. While other teams may not necessarily have their transition or their start might have been slowed down by certain things, maybe certain transition language, whatever it may be, that they had to do it. So I do agree that they deserve it, but there's moments where you're worried that if this was maybe a second or third season, whenever we get to that point where other teams already have kind of a foundation of who they want to be, the coaches have an idea, players have an idea, that maybe Roses FC hopefully keeps up to them, and if not,
got to keep improving.
Ups them in that sense, right? And that's something that I think we've spoken about this in this podcast, Elias, is how we want to see maybe this team experiment a little bit and try different things and see what really, really works, because I think there's a lot of room for improvement, and hopefully we get to see it. Let's go ahead and talk about the last bit that we wanted to talk in the show. We talked about Roses FC, CF Montreal, but we're going to talk a little bit about some of the Canada men's national team players that have been on the move. Ismael Kone is set to go on loan to newly promoted Serie A Sassuolo Calcio. What are your thoughts?
Oh, look at the kid. That was my first thought. The kid is so clean. I'm a sucker for like a classic looking kid. Phenomenal. No, 10 out of 10. No notes. Good job, Sassuolo. Also, really nice badge, but whatever. From a footballing perspective, I hope obviously I hope he does well. Canadian national team, impact CF Montreal, academy graduate. But if I'm CF Montreal watching this, this needs to work. Right? And we talked about it a bit after the news that we talked about it, you and me actually in the press box. After the news came out that Mathieu Chouinard could be LA bound. He is LA bound now.
Mm-hmm.
But you want to be known as a developmental club, or at least a club that gets people ready, gets players ready for their next step, be it the national team, be it Europe. Besides Alistair Johnston now, no other player that has come from this batch of sales from the last 3 or 4 years has actually been a success in Europe, has been able to successfully integrate themselves into European football and stay there at a high level. Alistair Johnston went to Celtic, is basically a club legend at this point, and he's having a great time. He's playing Champions League football, and he's doing it on the biggest stage. 100% good job. But Alistair Johnston arrived in Montreal as close to a finished product as you could. Maybe you polished off some edges, but he was already there. He was one of the best defenders in MLS when he got there. So you can't really claim to have gotten him ready for that next level. But when you look at George Mihailovic, you look at Mathieu Chouinard, and you look at Ismael Kone, those are the three guys where you could say, I CF Montreal got you ready for Europe, and I got you to Europe. Now, Nathan Saliba is the next one.
Wait and see.
Right? George Campbell is the next one. You can't really say whether or not it's been a success. They've been there for 5 minutes. But the three players that you now have gotten to Europe for a significant amount of time, for a year now, have all either come back to MLS with their tail between their legs because it did not work, or are at their fourth club now?
Yeah.
At the age of 21. So you are now faced with this thing where it's like, if I want to build a reputation as someone that gets people ready for Europe, am I really getting them ready for Europe, or am I getting them ready to be scouted by European clubs? Because there's a difference. Because if they get scouted, they go there, it doesn't work, and they come back. Or they get bounced from team to team on loan, and you fall out with your manager, then you're not getting these kids ready for Europe. Maybe you're dressing them up as what a European club is looking for, but fundamentally it's not there, right? George Mihailovic was an MVP frontrunner. Mathieu Chouinard was a 2-time All-Star. Ismael Kone was one of the most promising youngsters in MLS. So it's not like they couldn't do it in MLS. But what are you doing as a club to make sure that they get to Europe and stay there that's not working? And that's a serious thing that needs to be looked at. And that's why I also think that they're praying that Nathan Saliba and George Campbell work out too. Because if the same thing happens and they come back to MLS after a year or two in Europe and it doesn't work out, the club is going to look very bad.
Mm-hmm.
and they need to reconsider what it is about their preparation, about their methodology that's making all these clubs interested, but then ultimately not keep them in Europe.
Yeah. And we talked about it, the presence of veterans in the team, right? Because when you bring in a Thomas Mueller, legends of the game in Europe, to be in your locker room and be in practice and see how they practice, see how, their work ethic and all that the youngsters can be like, hey, like, I look how he practices, look how serious he doesn't go on Saturday night. He doesn't go to a Chiaga, the in the middle of a competition, like he takes this job seriously. And when we're talking specifically the example of Ismael Kone, there's been rumors that there might be some character issues there, right, Elias? So there might be some problems there where he might be running into issues with the coaches, And Elias, people think that the media in Montreal is a little bit heavy, but in Europe it's heavier. Literally to the second, they follow every conversation that was followed and they analyze everything, So when you see this Deserby thing that happened with Ismael Kone, at some point you had to question. As you mentioned, there's players that have been through 4 clubs on loans or whatnot. At some point you have to say, as you mentioned, is the CF Montreal's really preparation or is it the players' preparation? Ismael Kone needs to play at the highest level. You mentioned Alistair Johnston. Ismael Kone needs to play at the highest level he's ever played this year if he wants any chance at playing for the World Cup in 2026 for Canada. Because Nathan Saliba is also fighting for a spot, and he just joined the club. He has literally no reputation in Europe. So I think it's a good move. I think it's important. Samuel gave us a little opinion. He says, I feel defenders will always have more success. Campbell will do good, in my opinion. Defending is an art. Playing midfield and forward, you are much more dependent on your teammates and system. So
I mean, that's fair because I feel like also George Campbell is probably the most finished product to leave this club. Besides Alistair Johnston, right? This was the level he's played at this year was phenomenal. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he does have a certain amount of success. It's also a bit more straightforward when you're playing center back. He might also be playing right back, I hear. So it could be playing as one of those modern right-sided center backs that turns into a right back, but it's also a center back. It's all very ambiguous because Pep Guardiola said it should be, but they're looking at him to kind of be that athletic right-sided defender, however vague that means. But yeah, I do think that he definitely has the ability to thrive in Europe, 100%.
We're gonna keep a close eye on it because these next few months are gonna be crucial for all Canadian men's national team players that are looking to make their 20 seconds of fame in the World Cup. Hopefully, they go all the way to the end. Tajon Buchanan is also set to join Villarreal from Inter. What is your take on that, Elias?
I love it. Get him in an environment where he gets more minutes. Get him in an environment where he doesn't play like 5 games a season. He played more games in what 2 months at Villarreal than he did for the entire season at Inter last year. I love it. This has to, and the fact that it's permanent now, let him get into an environment that suits him, and get into a club culture where he can be settled and he can find his rhythm, he can find his routine. 1,000,000%, I love this move. And again, Villarreal is a fun team. They're a fun team that plays attacking football, and you kind of have to respect it. And at the same time, didn't have that great of a season last year. But you're playing some top level opposition. You're playing top opposition. And I'd rather you play in La Liga and you're gonna have the chance to play some European football. I think they qualify for the Champions League. If not, they're qualified for the Europa League. So you're gonna be playing European football if you're a starter. This is a great move for him.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important, and like I said, a lot of the players have to play their best season because you're talking about being in the Spanish league in La Liga. You know how many players in La Liga want to get minutes with Spain for the World Cup as well. So everybody's going to, everybody in every league is going to start playing at the top level. You know, when Bayern Munich won the treble, they also made it to most of the players in that team were and ended up being part of the World Cup winning team because they are playing at their top level, because they know the competition that's coming up. So let's hope for the best there. Guys, it is the end. Thank you to everyone who joined us today. We hope you enjoyed tonight's show. As always, the podcast will always be free to listen and watch on all of our platforms. Make sure to check out our Patreon page for exclusive member content and all of our social media platforms for more content. Follow my account as well as Elias for daily updates. Big shout out to all of you who joined the Patreon this week. And thank you again to all of you who tuned in tonight. And see you next week for episode 235 of The Ball is Round.